Aussie Joe Bugner, who took on the best of the boxing world and Tinseltown too, died today, aged 75.
Before his death, Joe Bugner reflected on a boxing career that spanned continents.
So when we eventually had our last sort of confrontation, I was so happy for him because
decades and wars inside and outside the ring. Born in Hungary and raised in Britain, then reborn as an Australian fighter, Bugner's story was never simple. He fought legends, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Jimmy Ellis, Ron Lyall, and he earned both admiration and scorn. But when Bugner looked back, what haunted him weren't only punches, it was the people. Those who mocked him, doubted him, and disrespected him when all he wanted was respect.
Well, I'm throwing the 2 kilo, obviously, being, of course, an adult. I'm throwing it at between 50 and 55 meters.
Before his passing, Bugner finally opened up about 7 boxers, 7 men he admitted he truly hated. Not always for what they did in the ring, but for what they represented in his long, complicated life. 1. Henry Cooper.
And we used to, and if ever there was a family get-together, me and George would put them on and we'd knock lumps off each other.
It was 1971. Joe Bugner was just 21 when he stepped into the ring with the beloved British icon, Sir Henry Cooper, the man who had floored Muhammad Ali years earlier. To the British public, Cooper was a gentleman, a hero, the very spirit of national pride. For Bugner, though, this was the biggest chance of his career. If he won, he'd become the British, Commonwealth, and European heavyweight champion, all in one night. The fight went the full 15 rounds. It was close, tactical, grinding. When the referee raised Bugner's hand, the arena erupted, not in celebration, but in rage. British fans booed endlessly. Newspapers called it a robbery. Some fans even spat at Bugner as he left the ring. Cooper retired immediately afterward, claiming he'd been cheated. Overnight, Bugner became public enemy number 1. He never forgave the British press for that night. He once said, "They hated me because I beat their hero."
He said he didn't only shake me, he shook my relations in Africa.
I didn't judge the fight. I just fought it. For decades, Bugner carried that resentment. He had admired Cooper before that night, but afterward, he saw how fame could turn loyalty into hatred. Henry Cooper symbolized the rejection that defined Bugner's early life, a rejection he would never forget. 2. Joe Frazier. 2 years later, in 1973, Joe Bugner found himself across the ring from Smokin' Joe Frazier, one of the fiercest men ever to lace gloves. Bugner respected Frazier's talent, but hated his arrogance. Frazier viewed Bugner as soft, a pretender among the heavyweights. In press conferences, Frazier mocked him, calling him the boy who can't fight hard. Bugner took that personally. When they fought in London, Frazier attacked like a storm. Hooks, body shots, unrelenting pressure for 12 rounds. Bugner stood tall and refused to fall. Though Frazier won on points, Bugner earned respect from some, but not from Frazier himself. After the fight, Frazier dismissed him, saying, "He's got a good chin, but no heart." Those words burned in Bugner's memory. He'd gone toe-to-toe with one of the most brutal punchers of all time and survived, yet was told he lacked heart. For a man who prided himself on endurance and technique, that insult never faded. Years later, when asked which opponent he disliked most, Bugner didn't hesitate to name Joe Frazier. He said, "Frazier fought with hate, and I fought with pride. Maybe that's why we could never understand each other." 3. Muhammad Ali. Few fighters have faced Muhammad Ali twice and lived to tell about it with their dignity intact.
And with that, he enjoyed it. Muhammad Ali had...
Joe Bugner was one of them. But to Bugner, Ali was more than an opponent. He was a shadow that followed him forever. Their first meeting came in 1973. Ali was already larger than life, charming, loud, beloved by crowds worldwide. Bugner was the European champion, determined to prove himself. The fight went the distance, but Ali's ring control and showmanship won easily. Bugner took the loss with pride, but the world only saw another stepping stone for Ali. In 1975, they met again, this time in Kuala Lumpur. It was one of Ali's toughest fights before the Thriller in Manila. Bugner, heavier and more confident, boxed defensively, using his jab and movement. But Ali again took a unanimous decision. Afterward, Ali called Bugner lazy, claiming, "He could have been champion if he wasn't so lazy." That stung more than any punch. Bugner hated that label. He felt it erased the years of sacrifice, the lonely training camps, and the pain of exile. To him, Ali represented what the public loved: charisma, flash, talk, everything Bugner was not. Bugner respected Ali's greatness, but he resented how easily the world worshipped him. For Bugner, Ali wasn't just a rival. He was a reminder that boxing wasn't about skill alone. It was about image, and Joe Bugner never had one that people wanted to love. From the opening bell, Lyall attacked with pure aggression. Bugner later admitted that it was one of the most painful fights of his life. Every punch was meant to end him. The fight ended in a decision for Lyall, but the damage, physical and emotional, stayed. Bugner hated Lyall's cruelty. He said years later, he didn't want to win, he wanted to hurt. That experience hardened Bugner's attitude toward the sport. He began to see boxing as a place where kindness was weakness. Lyall became the embodiment of everything Bugner despised about American boxing: the brutality, the ego, the bloodlust. 5. Ernie Shavers. Few men in boxing history hit as hard as Ernie Shavers.
Ali and Larry Holmes, both great champs, they both beat me. I like fighting one of those guys.
Even Muhammad Ali once said Shavers hit like an axe chopping down a tree. When Bugner fought Shavers in 1978, he believed he could outbox the slugger. For a few rounds he did. Then Shavers landed a right hand that nearly knocked Bugner out cold. Bugner survived only by clinching and moving, but the fight ended brutally. A knockout loss for Bugner in round 2. Bugner admitted that Shavers' power haunted him, but it wasn't just the punch he hated, it was Shavers' attitude. After the fight, Shavers reportedly said, "Bugner was just another name to me. I never worried about him." That line infuriated Bugner. To him, boxing was personal. He prided himself on giving every opponent a challenge. To be dismissed like that felt humiliating.
Really in trouble. Very much trouble.
He often referred to Shavers when talking about the dangers of underestimating your opponents. But deep down, he hated how Shavers made him feel helpless for the first time in his career. 6. Jimmy Ellis. Long before Ali, Frazier, and Foreman defined the heavyweight scene, Jimmy Ellis quietly built his own legacy. When Bugner faced him in 1971,
last week beat Alvin Blue Lewis out of Detroit, so the guy got a pretty fair record, the guys that hit him.
Jimmy, do you think you're a better fighter now than you were when you were champion?
Ellis was a former WBA champion, experienced, sharp, and slick. The fight went to the scorecards, and Bugner lost by decision. But what angered him wasn't the loss, it was the aftermath. British reporters praised Ellis, calling him a master craftsman, while dismissing Bugner as slow, mechanical, and dull. Even Ellis himself joined the chorus, claiming, "The kid's got talent, but no fire." That phrase stuck. Bugner felt insulted that Ellis and others couldn't see his controlled style as intelligent rather than passionless. He once said, "If I fought wild like Frazier, they'd call me brave. But when I fight smart, they call me boring." Bugner hated Ellis not because of who he was, but because of what he represented, the way American fighters were celebrated for aggression, while European fighters like him were criticized for discipline. 7. Frank Bruno. By the mid-1980s, Joe Bugner had relocated to Australia.
21 fights behind him, 5 defeats.
But he still kept an eye on British boxing. When Frank Bruno rose to fame as Britain's new heavyweight star, Bugner saw echoes of his own past. The adoration, the media frenzy, the hope that this one will bring glory home. In 1987, Bugner returned to the UK to fight Bruno. It was billed as the Battle of Britain. The fight wasn't close. Bruno, younger and stronger, dominated, eventually stopping Bugner in the 8th round. But it wasn't the loss that broke him. It was the disrespect. Bruno, who had once said he admired Bugner, called him a fat old man before the fight. The British press piled on, portraying Bugner as washed up and arrogant. Afterward, Bugner left Britain for good, vowing never to fight under the Union Jack again. He said, "They booed me when I was young, and they booed me when I was old. I was never their champion." His hatred toward Bruno was less personal and more symbolic. Bruno represented the cycle that Bugner had already lived through, adored when winning, mocked when losing. For Bugner, Bruno was a painful reminder that in Britain, love for a boxer was temporary, and that fame could be as cruel as defeat. In his final interviews, Joe Bugner spoke candidly about the sport that made him famous and broke his heart. He had fought the legends, Cooper, Frazier, Ali, Lyall, Shavers, Ellis, Bruno, and survived them all. But his biggest fight was always against perception.